Welcome to Inside the Skev, and I'm your host, Aaron Masliansky. Today, I am here with one of my longest, oldest, bestest friends, Brad Sugar, who is a Skevinson resident down the street from me. And Brad's got a really cool job working for an amazing organization called American Jewish World Service, and wanted to have Brad on the show and so you guys can learn about him. So, Brad, thanks for coming on.
Good morning. It's so cool to be here. Not only have we known each other forever, but obviously, Aaron, you sold us our house that we've been in for a year and a half, and
That's
we are,
true.
About a block away from each other. So you can't get away from me.
I can't get away. Well, if I didn't like you, I wouldn't let you live near me.
Well, we'll see how the interview goes, and then you can tell me if you still like me afterwards.
Yeah, I'll make that decision.
Okay.
We've known each other basically, since we were like 4 years old and went to school together, and I think that...
Well, your memory is much better than mine,
like
so you could probably tell me to the day, but yeah, something around there.
Well, I'll tell you, what I remember in first grade, we were lining up for where our desks were going to be, and we were both wearing the exact same outfit. It was a bear sweatshirt with gray sweatpants.
Do you still have them?
I probably do. It's probably in my parents' basement.
We should have coordinated today. You should have told me to wear the same thing, and we could have taken a picture.
Well, you are wearing sweatpants. Nobody can see.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. So, no, it's so cool. And, I've got this interest in global affairs, even though this is, inside the Skev, the hyper-local Skevinston, Skokie, Evanston area. But what I think is so cool about this area is that we have people who are connected to places that do work all around the world. And you work for an organization called American Jewish World Service. So is that an organization that just helps Jewish people around the world, or what does it exactly do?
So AJWS is an organization that we're inspired by the Jewish commitment to justice. And so what we aim to do is end poverty and realize human rights all across the world. And what that really means is we're focusing on individuals who are the most marginalized. And generally, while there may be some people who we support through our grant-making initiatives, which I'd be happy to talk about later, most of the people we are supporting are likely not Jewish. We find ourselves mostly in the global south with vulnerable populations that stem from a variety of issues, whether it's working on child marriage. Right now, one of our big issues is working with the Rohingya in Burma. So we tackle a lot of pressing issues, but generally, no, we're not focused on supporting the Jewish community necessarily.
So it's tikkun olam, right?
Yeah,
which is
the mission,
fixing the world.
Right. So, as I said, the mission statement is inspired by the Jewish commitment to justice. It's tikkun olam, repairing the world. But I think it's more than that. It's the inherent recognition by us that every human being has dignity. From a Jewish lens, you might call that that we're all infused with the divine. That we all have a little piece of God or the Creator in us. But it's recognizing the inherent dignity in every human being, and that's helping people all across the world realize their rights, and that's what we stand up for. That's what we stand for.
When did the organization start?
AJWS is about 35 years old, which is really unbelievable for the amount of stuff that we have accomplished in that period of time. We're the Jewish community's sort of main voice for certainly disaster relief and international aid efforts. Mm-hmm. But over the past decade, we've really sort of grown in the human rights arena. And people may remember AJWS in particular for the work we did in the early and mid-2000s around Darfur and the genocide in Darfur. But we've really grown tremendously over the past couple of years, and we've had some leadership changes as well. So, yeah.
And, you're doing work in Burma with the Rohingya population. What type of work is being done there?
So there's a lot. We tackle the problems that we are working with on multiple different levels. So there's an advocacy lens. With Rohingya in particular, we have brought together a coalition of Jewish organizations. I actually like to say that this is probably the only issue that you get all of the sort of Jewish denominations spanning from Reconstructionism to Orthodox in conjunction with each other to take a stand on this issue. I mean, the Jewish community is familiar, unfortunately, with genocide, and we have this saying never again.
Right.
And so we take it upon ourselves to do that very seriously. So from an advocacy lens, we're working to support the passage of bills that would hold the military accountable for what's going on in Burma. We also are working on direct aid. We're helping people move from Burma to Bangladesh and supporting the refugee camps in Bangladesh, so providing safe passage, et cetera. And then we're working with civil society and groups on the ground to work on a just solution, at the end of the day, and empowering those to know that what their rights are, and to work with them on advocating for those rights on the ground, both there and here in the United States.
Do you coordinate with like U.S. State Department or USAID in order to make that happen?
We have a lot of partners on the ground to accomplish what we're doing, and what's going on at the range is going to be sort of a longer-term solution. And so the people that we work with are wide-ranging to a lot of, to some government agencies to other aid agencies. So.
I imagine that in some of the places that the organization goes, they're not necessarily the friends of the government. So, I mean, is there concern for the safety, or do people, when they go in there from the organization, ever feel concerned about that, or do they have to get buy-in from the local governments to be able to help with what they're working on?
I would say you're right. A lot of times, the work that we are doing in supporting really heroes that are doing human rights work probably would not be supported by the government. I don't think you sort of go in as an aid worker or someone working on human rights, putting exactly what you're going to be doing.
Right.
So there are a lot of times when our work potentially puts us in danger and puts a lot of our grantees in danger sometimes. Unfortunately, just by virtue of the fact that we have the name Jewish in our name, oftentimes puts some of our partners, for example, who are Muslim, at risk. We used to be in Afghanistan. We're no longer in Afghanistan because of that. So we shout our work from the rooftops here because we believe how important it is.
Yeah.
But generally, we try and support our grantees on the ground in a way that keeps them as safe as possible.
Has there ever been a thought to change the name of the organization, or is it? I would assume it's an integral part of the organization's work.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of acronyms, not just in the Jewish community. There's a lot of acronyms,
of course,
and it's really hard to keep track. But I think what AJWS does, which is so unique in the world and in the marketplace, is it helps Jewish individuals express their values through philanthropy. And we work, and my job in particular is to work with philanthropists to express their Jewish values to ensure that the world is going to be a better place when people, are done with this world. And so. Changing the name is not something we're in favor of. We AJWS gives American Jews the opportunity to service the world. It's as simple as that.
I think it's a great way to take ownership of it and to say that that the organization is helping everybody, and it's something to be proud of. So I wouldn't necessarily agree with changing the name. I'm just curious because of what you were saying about the organization having to leave Afghanistan and other places.
No, I'd say we're very strategic about where we go.
Yeah.
And while I don't necessarily work on the program side and can't necessarily speak to our long-term strategies in some of those areas, we are very specific about giving the Jewish community here an outlet to international issues and to international development issues and human rights issues. So we're very proud of that, and we feel like we're one of the only organizations that's doing that work.
And the organization is located, it's based in New York, right? But you have offices all around the country?
Yeah, so our programmatic work is international. That is our focus. So we operate in about 20 countries, and we have over 450 grantees. So we raise anywhere between $30 and $50 million, really, annually from the American community, mostly the American Jewish community. Then we redistribute that to over 450 organizations internationally. So our operations are not domestic, though our apparatus is in New York, with some satellite offices, and that's my responsibility here. I'm responsible for the Midwest, and I'm situated. I have an office in Ravenswood, and I work sometimes out of Skevinston.
That's right.
But our domestic work, really, in addition to bringing the Jewish community together, is about advocacy and working with the government, working at the UN, providing an outlet for our grantees and an opportunity for people who don't know about what's happening in some parts of the world to become a little bit more informed. Unfortunately, there are human rights issues and disaster issues occurring every day, and what happens is that one time, you'll see on the cover of the New York Times there's something, and then unfortunately the next day there's something else terrible that's going on. And so what we do is wherever we are, whatever work we're doing is long term. Yeah. So we're still in Haiti, right? We've been there for a long time after the devastation there. And unlike a lot of disaster relief organizations and crises sort of mitigation organizations, we support our grantees for the long term. We're never going to give a grant to someone doing work for 6 months or a year. We're usually there at least 5 years, if not longer, to help in a disaster situation, repair what's going on. And from a human rights perspective, which we have several portfolios, whether it's sexual health and rights, that's working with young women and girls, LGBT organizations, et cetera, to civil and political rights organizations. So I think I was telling you earlier, I went to the Dominican Republic in February. I learned for the first time that there is an enormous statelessness issue of individuals who had come from Haiti, from neighboring Haiti, and are now in the Dominican Republic who are not recognized as citizens in either country. So
Haiti said that they're no longer Haitian citizens either?
No. So what you have is a situation where they originally came from Haiti to do some work in the Dominican Republic, and now it's been several generations since that work has occurred. It's mostly for sugarcane production. Yeah. And because some of those individuals weren't born in Haiti, the offspring, for example, right? And they aren't on the grid, so to speak. They're in far-flung communities in the Dominican Republic, in what are called bates. These are, they're off the electric grid. They don't have, public water. They don't have any of those things. So they're not considered citizens in either of those countries, which means they're not considered legally human beings, which means that they don't have birth certificates. They can't have access to jobs. They're not afforded access to health care. They cannot legally get married.
They can't travel outside of the country.
They can't travel. Yeah. They're destitute. And so think about that. When someone doesn't recognize you as a human being, what that means. And there's about 250,000 of those people in the Dominican Republic. So
250,000?
Yes, there's 250,000 of those people. So the work that we are doing in the civil and political rights arena is to work with them on the ground to get their rights realized as part of our mission. So we have now, it's through some of our grantee partners in the Dominican Republic. While it's not an ideal solution, the government has classified some of those individuals as Group A and Group B. And Group A are individuals who have been guaranteed that their rights will be realized and they'll become citizens of the Dominican Republic because they can prove some sort of lineage there. And Group B are individuals that will take a longer-term solution for. But that's not something that happens in a year or 2 or 3. You have to support multiple organizations and attack it from multiple different angles to see that to fruition. So that's sort of the civil and political rights sort of angle that we're doing.
It's a baseline of rights.
Absolutely. The work that we do is it's called a rights-based approach. So when you talk about international development, you could talk about infusing capital, right, and ensuring that GDP growth is a huge marker of success.
Sure.
What we do is strip it down to its very basic level and talk about how are people being recognized and being treated? Do they have access to basic human needs? Are they recognized? There are so many countries where it's illegal to be who you are. Met with an individual from Kenya. I think I told you about this past summer. Yeah. It's pretty much illegal to be a part of the LGBT community in Kenya. And the Supreme Court in Kenya upheld that ruling this past summer. But little by little, we chip away through advocacy efforts and through supporting initiatives on the ground to help people in that community feel whole.
And it's not just feeling whole, it's feeling that there's some sense of security for these people. I mean, I remember you were telling me about him, and, he's a marked man. And, coming to America, he still had that same psychological damage and, the fear that something's going to happen because he's gay.
Yeah. Yeah, so you have to address this from lots of different angles. So in addition to our disaster relief work, which is really how a lot of people know the organization, there's the sexual health and rights work, which addresses a lot of this. And one of our big bets is supporting ending early and child marriage in India, where we have lots of grantees. There's the civil and political rights work, which I was just telling you about. There's also the land and climate work that we do, where we work with a lot of indigenous communities to ensure that their drinking water is clean, to ensure that their land is not encroached upon. We had a big victory in that regard, actually, in El Salvador earlier in the year, where we, through our grantee partners, created a ban on metallic mining in El Salvador entirely. And it was a huge victory for, as you would imagine, people who are living in forests and living in places where they just want to be left alone. And
people who drink water.
People who drink water, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you said before, it's the basic parts of human dignity that they need to be able to have clean water to drink. And if they're doing this type of mining, it's destroying their water supplies.
Yeah. Yeah, and I find the work that we do really compelling for a lot of different reasons, but one of the things that is continuously asked to me by people who are learning about the organization, they say, well, what do your grantees think about the organization? What do they say when they find out, that they explore that it's a Jewish organization? What does it mean to them?
Yeah.
And I get the same answer most of the time, which is, we know a little bit about the Jewish history, and we know about what's happened to the Jewish community. And if there's anyone in the world that understands the struggle that we are going through, I mean, again, whether it's any of the areas, focus issues that we deal with, right? They say, well, the Jewish community would understand what we're going through. And that's the type of support and voice that we want to be for people, because yes, of course, the Jewish community has experienced a lot of oppression, and obviously there's a lot of anti-Semitism going on today.
And diaspora.
And the diaspora. But there's a deep-rootedness in Jewish text, Jewish law to support others. The Jewish community has a huge history in fighting for civil rights, political justice, both here in the States and abroad. And as I said before, we believe in the inherent dignity of every human being. And so while repairing the world, so to speak, is not an inherent Jewish value. The Jewish community does not own, caring about human rights, not in the slightest. We are sort of the beacon in the Jewish community to basically say that these things are important. We, more than most, should understand that they're important, and we act on them in a significant way.
And, what is the best way that people get involved with trying to support the work that you guys are doing?
So doing this type of work, as I said, is long-term, and it takes a lot of commitment and it takes a lot of effort. My work is predominantly with philanthropists and partners and supporters here in the Midwest who want to be a part of the solutions across the world. So becoming involved really means we have opportunities throughout the year to meet some of the change makers and grantees that we support. Probably 5 or 6 times a year we learn from them, and it's really an exchange. We talk about sort of Jewish values. The Jewish community talks a lot about working in partnership and chavruta, right? Learning from each other. The word chavruta means it's like a study partner, and that's the type of work that we do. That our grantees learn from us, in that we're often helping them create business plans and strategies and long-term goals, and helping them network, et cetera. And obviously they teach us about the work that we're doing. Mm-hmm. It's a unique type of approach that is not just to be lauded in the Jewish community, but in the international community, it's not a Western approach to international development where we say, oh, we know how to fix the problems that you are having, or we know how to deal with this particular issue. No, we don't. We're not living there. We don't understand it. And so we find the people who can work on these issues, and we entrust that they know how to solve their problems best. Mm-hmm. And so we learn from each other, and one of the ways we do that is by having people come to the States, and in my case, it's in the Midwest. And so there are a couple times a year where people who are interested can come in here and learn from these individuals, and there's always opportunities to support our work and to get more involved that way.
Yeah. How did you come to find the organization, and what was your inspiration to work here?
Well, I'd say you knew my grandmother.
Yes.
Right? A lot of people in this area knew my
Rose.
grandmother. That's right. And I'm a grandson of Holocaust survivors, as many of us are. And most of my childhood was learning about what that experience was like for her. And so there's always this, I'm sure for children of survivors and grandchildren of survivors, there's this element of, okay, how could this possibly happen to me, right? But it is happening. It's happening all across the world.
Right.
And so I came to the organization feeling like my grandparents would be extremely proud of me by being part of a solution. My work is development focused. So while the organization does international development work on the ground, helping communities grow, I'm a fundraiser. So professionally, I help connect individuals to express their values through philanthropy. And I think this is a wonderful way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you worked in different nonprofits beforehand, but you also went to Kellogg, right? Northwestern. Yeah. And did that experience there help you with what you're doing now? And what did you think of that program?
So Kellogg was certainly a life-changing experience. A wonderful opportunity to go to one of the world's greatest business schools, and it doesn't hurt that it was down the road from us.
In Evanston?
I think no matter what industry you're in or you plan on being in, looking at the world through a different lens is always a good thing. And I think that's what going to business school allowed me to do. It allowed me to look at this work through lots of different angles. So from a fundraising perspective, it's all about market segmentation. You need to know who you should be talking to, who your customers are in this case, who the people who would be most likely to support our work. And I think it's a fundamental issue that a lot of people say, oh, yeah, sure, I understand that. But it dictates how you spend your time. It dictates the resources that you spend, the effort that you spend. And Kellogg is a marketing school more than anything. And so it's helped me as a professional know who I should be speaking with about this, and using the tools and skills that I've learned to differentiate people who certainly are interested in the work that we're doing versus interested and capable and want to come on board in some way. So that was important. Finance, even though I'm not intricately involved in finance, understanding nonprofit finance and helping donors who are sophisticated, who have donor-advised funds, who run serious philanthropies and charities, who need to know what the bottom line looks like to be able to have conversations with those people. And I'd also say, as I was one of the few nonprofit professionals in my cohort, it gave me an opportunity to learn about lots of different industries, and in turn give my colleagues an understanding of some of the challenges that the nonprofit world faces, that I face, et cetera. So,
well, I think another thing that is helpful that you had people in your cohort were from all around the world, right? And you actually went to Hong Kong too,
yeah.
Which is kind of timely right now. But it probably, I would think, gives you a greater perspective of cultures and people from around the world. So you have more of an understanding when you're interacting with people who want to get involved in global work.
Yeah, that's very true. It's a great point. I'd say the Kellogg sort of philosophy of making sure you have a global experience in some way, shape, or form, whether it's going somewhere like I did to Hong Kong, or people from all of their different campuses coming here and working with different people, different populations, different industries, that definitely had an impact on me saying that I wanted to be involved in this work, for sure.
By the way, when you were in Hong Kong, I mean, did you see anything that would indicate that they would be having such a massive protests of what was going to be happening now? Because you were there, what, 3 years ago?
I was in Hong Kong 2000 and it was 2016. It was literally after the Cubs had won the World Series. So it was 2016. I was doing a lot of studying at the time, and I was doing a lot of touring in Hong Kong. It's a big place.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel anything at the time, though I did speak with a lot of the locals there who were very aware of potential incoming issues.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the first time that sovereignty has been an issue there, of course, and people are acutely aware of the situation. I didn't feel anything, certainly not from a safety perspective back then, but I guess it goes to show you when you look at some of the issues, when you look at some of the photos and the videos of people who have stood strong and are protesting there for months at this point, it demonstrates the power of civil society, and when you get groups together to organize and take action, that people notice. So AJWS doesn't work in Hong Kong, but from my personal perspective, it's all about mobilization and understanding that you need to get a collective of people working together to solve a common problem.
Right. I think that's kind of the key takeaway, and you're giving the people around the world the tools to be able to have that dignity, human rights, and to be able to solve their problems where they become a more happy, healthy society.
Yeah, and we do it in lots of different ways. Just a quick anecdote. So I told you about the work we're doing in child marriage, and one of the coolest ways to combat this that I have found is through one of our grantees in India who run an all-female taxi cab service. So when I tell people about this, well, how does that help curb early child marriage? And it goes like this. Women in a lot of parts of India are not given aspirations. They don't ever think about working. They don't have opportunities to work. Often young girls are married early, not because parents want to marry their child off early, but because they have no financial recourse and they can't guarantee a financial future for their daughter oftentimes unless that's the case.
Yeah.
And so you have to think long term and what the roots of this problem are. And one of the roots is that women don't have financial opportunities. So there is an organization that we support, and we started supporting several years ago, and they've become wildly successful, that has trained young women to become taxi cab drivers. So what does this do? It combats a problem on multiple levels. Number one, there's a high rate of violence and rape for women who get into cabs with men in India.
God.
Right? And so it's very difficult for women to travel in India. So from a practical perspective, people need to get from point A to point B. And so if someone got into a cab, if a woman got into a cab with another woman, it would help them feel better about that transportation option, number one. Number two, if there was a woman driving that cab, it would give them a source of income. And livelihood, and give them an aspiration of something that they can do. And so we have this organization that's been doing this, and the individuals and the young women who train in this program are the main breadwinners in their family now, out of lots of kids. Right?
That changes the dynamic.
It totally changes the dynamic. You had this one young woman who I met last year. She has the largest house in her neighborhood. Right? People look up to her, both young women and also young boys. I think it's important to understand that we need to train our young men to treat women appropriately and with respect, and that women should be given equal opportunities to do whatever it is they want to do, and to be given agency in their own life. So you wouldn't think that providing taxi services has anything to do with child marriage, but it's stopping long term, if you provide economic opportunities in that way and empower young women to do that type of work, it's solving a lot of problems.
Yeah, and it's not like some overarching, program where you're trying to have the government top down change all the laws or anything like that. You're starting with a simple program that sparks change from the ground up.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, even if a law is changed, even if I were able to say to you that the work that we or any other human rights organization has changed laws, which AJWS has, by the way, doesn't mean that the situation on the ground changes.
Right.
So one of our victories last year, or maybe it was 2017 really, was we worked in various parts of India to get something called triple talaq removed. Talaq is a word in Arabic for divorce. And in some cases, in parts of India, which are under some Muslim law, if a husband were to say to his wife the words divorce 3 times, legally they were divorced. So think about the situation that puts the woman in. She has no agency over her
She
marriage.
can't get divorced.
Well, the husband has full control of annulling their marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah. She couldn't, if she wanted to. That law doesn't apply to her, meaning she couldn't say divorce 3 times and divorce her husband. And so that law was repealed, right? The triple talaq law, with our help and a lot of other agencies on the ground, that was repealed. So it's illegal to do that, but you still have to change from within. You still have to work on the roots of a society and a culture to ensure that people recognize that that's not okay.
Yeah.
So it's a long term.
It's a very long term. It's an uphill battle, but it seems like you guys are getting success.
Yeah, one of the things that I love about our work, especially in the nonprofit field where data and metrics are really not where they need to be, is that we have an entire division called the Strategic Learning and Evaluation Division, which focuses on our work. And we have created something in this field which I don't think a lot of people have. It's a social, it's called a social movement mapping tool, and it demonstrates our progress on our issue areas and how much impact we have had in favorable situations and unfavorable situations, how we've moved the needle on all these different types of issues. And it's sort of a nascent enterprise to be able to track progress on development work in this way, but we have an entire division that's focused on it, and I think that's allowed us to get funding from lots of different places, including various governments. We're funded, we have grants from the Canadian government. We're working on getting funding from the Netherlands on some of our human rights work, so it's super cool.
It's significant.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if people want to follow what you guys are doing, what's the best way to go about that?
We do have a pretty active Twitter and Facebook presence. I'm not a huge social media guy, but you can go to
a step back.
Yeah, you can go to ajws.org and follow a lot of our initiatives on there. The main thing right now I'd say that the organization is working on is the Rohingya issue, which I would consider us a thought leader on, and working all across the world and getting people to understand and recognize the problem there. But my information is on the website. You can learn a little bit more about our initiatives. There's a lot. I mean, for me, my first foray into human rights work over the past several years, it's a lot. To all the different issue areas we work on, the different organizations we support, the types of work that we do, it's a lot to take in. There's a lot of theory around it. There's a lot of very thoughtful individuals who are working with our grantees to help them realize that change. And there's a ton of information about it online and elsewhere to learn about.
Well, it's a great way to find out how to stand up and take a stand in the world and make a good change. So, I think it's wonderful, and, everyone should check out the website and follow social media. But I think it's so cool that you're doing this work and, how powerful it impacts the entire globe.
Yeah, I feel very proud. And I think that's the sense that I get from a lot of our partners and philanthropists that we work with as well, that we give them the opportunity to engage in extremely meaningful work. We also, we take trips to a lot of the places that we work with. I mentioned I went to the Dominican Republic. I've been to Guatemala. Some of our some of our staff just came back from Senegal. So it's life-altering experiences. When you can sit on the ground with people who are struggling to be recognized as human beings, or are struggling with basic things that you and I wouldn't ever think about. It's humbling, and it also puts into perspective, while we, understandably are concerned about what's happening in our country, and there's a lot to talk about there that we're not going to get into.
Right.
We still have so many freedoms, and we still have our own agencies for the most part. That is just light years beyond what most of the world has the opportunity to do.
Right. Well, we need to try to help, and this is a great way to do it. So, Brad, thank you so much for coming on the show, and everyone please subscribe, and you can find out more information also on skevinson.com. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone, for listening to this latest episode of Inside the Skev. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want to know more about the Skev and more about what I do as a real estate agent in the area, go to skevinson.com. They got a lot of great information there about exciting guests that have been on the show, live events that are coming up, and any type of information that you're looking for. And if you have any suggestions or questions for me, feel free to email me at aaron@skevinson.com. Always happy to hear from people. And thanks so much for listening, and please subscribe.